I was making a large batch of my twist blanks, and during the process there were a number of blanks that they just drilled off center. Don't know what the problem was. Perhaps the blank wasn't perfectly square when I drilled it. Perhaps I hit some type of a tight spot in the grain and the bit veered off. I really can't tell you what the reason was, but I had this reasonably large stack of blanks that were going to go to the burn pile. After looking at them for a while, I thought, you know, I might be able to make something out of those. So I started cutting them into 1/4-inch segments. And you can see, if you look closely at the blank, you can see where I had initially drilled it. That's the inside of the blank. The outside of the blank is glued to these other pieces to form this very interesting looking blank. And I'm looking forward to getting these onto the lathe and seeing what they look like. So let's take this blank over to the lathe. Let's get it chucked up. Let's get it trued up. And then we'll get it drilled and tubed and see how this looks as a pin blank. I did my best to find and punch the center of the blank on both ends. I've got a spur center, and I'm going to chuck up this blank. And one thing we want to watch for is notice how the pieces overlap. I don't want to turn the blank where I have to turn against those pieces. I want to turn it, if you look at this, see, so it's going to be spinning this way, so I'm turning with the pieces. I hope that makes sense, but the idea is to give myself the best possibility for success. I'm going to extend the tailstock, and we're going to bring the blank up into the spur center, and I'm watching as best as I can to make sure I get this centered, and that looks pretty good. The neat thing is the spur center has 4 spurs on it, and there's a little 1/4-inch by 1/4-inch square of blank down the middle of this blank. So what I'm attempting to do is hit each corner with the spur center. Get it good and tight, lock it down, and we are ready to true this blank. With the blank partially trued, I'm going to go ahead and swap out my spur center for a set of pin jaws. We're going to grip the chuck in those pin jaws, and we're going to drill a 27/64" hole right down the center of our blank. I've slowed the lathe down to about 800 RPMs. Got my 27/64" bit chucked up, and we're ready to drill our blank. And with that, we've completed the hole through our blank. Let's remove our blank from the chuck. Take a look at our entry hole. There's our exit hole. Looks like we did a really nice job. Let's get a tube glued into this blank. The epoxy has finally dried on the brass tube. I got the ends of this blank squared, and we are ready to turn and see what it's going to look like. I have the blank turned down to the bushings. It's a little bit proud of the bushings. You can feel a fingernail on either end, but Spectraply is so soft, that'll disappear as soon as I start sanding. In theory, I think this was a pretty cool idea. I like how the blank looks. I wish it was a little bit more like a cabochon effect on each of the 4 sides. Maybe sanding will help a little bit with that. I'll try to focus more on the ends and leave a little bit of a rise in the middle to see if I can help. But let me get my my drill and my sanding pads, and let's see what we can do with this blank. I am going to apply 1 coat of thin CA prior to sanding, because Spectraply, the darker colors will bleed into the lighter colors as you sand. We'll let that flash off and dry, and then we'll get busy sanding. I think that sanding really helped. I'm ready to clean this with a little denatured alcohol. See how that dye comes off? That's fairly normal. Take a look at that. Now that looks pretty cool. We've got more of a cabochon effect. And what I did is, since I had a fingernail on either end, I started at the middle and worked my way to the right and to the left to sort of give the blank a little bit of a convex shape. And that helped the cabochon show up, and I think it gave a really cool effect. I'm going to let this denatured alcohol flash off, and I'm going to put a CA finish on this blank, and I'll come back and show it to you right before I start the micro mesh process. First coat of CA going on. Take a look at that. It's going to be pretty cool, I think. A lot of dark colors in this one, but I kind of like that. All right, I'm going to shut the camera off and once again come back when it's time to micromesh. CA has been applied to the blank. I'm ready to micromesh. Full disclosure, I actually started micromeshing and got about 2-3 seconds into the process when I realized I was supposed to stop and show the blank. I paused. This is what she looks like. You might notice some scratches in the video. That's from the first micromesh pad. We're going to go ahead and run all 9 pads at 15 seconds per pad, and I'll come back and show it to you before I buff it up. Should make it look really nice. The blank has been micromeshed, and take a look at that shine. Looks like a piece of glass. I'm going to go ahead and apply some Renaissance wax, and we'll let this dry, and we'll come back and run it on the buffing wheels and see what she looks like. Here's a quick look at that blank. The blank is amazing looking. Let's get over to the assembly table and get this assembled into a kit. I'm ready to press this blank into a kit. Now you might notice that the nib and the transmission have already been assembled for this one. I had a pin that kind of messed the blank up on after using it for a while. The kit still looks really nice, but the blank was shot. So I went ahead and knocked it apart, and we're going to reuse this kit for our new blank. Let me pull the bushings out of either end of our blank, and I'm going to take a look at it. Honestly, I think this would be the nib end. This would be the cap end. So we'll put this bushing back in for protection. I don't want to cover up this cabochon, so I think I'll place this across the green like this, and that's how we're going to press it together. Before I press it together, let me grab a tool, and I want to chamfer both ends of my blank. I almost forgot to do this, and it does make assembly easier. Get any burrs out of there. This is the way we want to do it. So let's go ahead and put this together. I'll get this on the side with the green, and let's get it into the press. Okay. Get the light a little forward here. Maybe we can see that a little better. Looks really nice. Got a good fit. Let's slide the front half of our pin in. Here's a quick look at the pin. All in all, she turned out really nice. I'm very happy. Kind of like the contrast of that gold clip on the green. I think that was a good decision. And we've got some nice cabochons to look at on the other 3 sides. Got a little scratch on my pin there. Need to probably buff that out. Oh, it looks like it's just probably fingerprints. Not a problem. Very happy with how the pin turned out. I'd like to thank you for joining me in the shop today for the making of this blank. I had a good time doing this. These were all little pieces of material that had gotten cut off of other blanks. They were literally in the burn pile, and they were not big enough to make a pin, but they were big enough to do something with. So I plucked them all out, and I put this little blank together, and overall I'm happy with how the pin turned out. I'd like to thank you for joining me in the shop today. I want you to know that you are always welcome in my shop. Come back and see me again real soon, and have a great day.